Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge television, radio, and podcast talk show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone as I get right home with you in the afternoon. You can find us on television. We are syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget, you can also find us on Channel 182 in North Alabama, and that's through Spectrum. And you can also find us on our podcast, thenewscasters.com. Don't forget, you can find us also, well, you can find us all over the place on the radio. The biggest radio country station in South Carolina, WZLA, proud to be part of that team as well. Another way you can find us is on all the social media sites. We do them all. So Facebook.com is one of those, Facebook.com/Feazell. You can find us that way. I don't want you to get in trouble. If you are at work, don't watch the show, don't listen to it. But you can find us after hours on YouTube and all those different areas as well. Continue sending email. I'm just going to tell you, Peter and I love the email you are sending. Donna at donnasedge.com. Donna at donnasedge.com. Peter Young is with me right now. Peter, apparently we struck a nerve with folks. And this is about, people are concerned about family members right now. Some of this happens online, where somebody sends a bunch of money. That's happened to someone in my life as well. Mm-hmm. And where someone sends a bunch of money to a fake person. Is that kind of a cultish kind of a thing there as well? Or have you thought about that?
Well, it's certainly an attribute of some cults and often cult leaders. It's amazing, Donna, because again, the cult I was in was very tiny. But through my research, what I have found is that so many of the attributes of cult leaders are in every cult. It's amazing, really. It's almost as if there's some little, Dr. Evil school of cult leadership or something. I'm tongue in cheek, but they share so many attributes. And one of them would be financial abuse. So you think of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, mental, and there's financial abuse. We didn't really have that in ours. There were some really odd behaviors when it came to money. But yes, often cult leaders want total control. So then that would mean control over your daily life. And part of that would be your finances. Mm-hmm. And often what that will look like is when we tithe. So in the Christian faith, there's the theology of tithing, which is 10%. You give back to the Lord as a way of basically being obedient and saying thank you. And in our case, I would tithe to maybe my local church or other Christian organizations. And eventually, all went to him. All went to our cult leader. We called him Uncle Robert. And oh, by the way, he liked to gamble. So yeah, it was a really weird financial dynamic. That's not to say if somebody scams you, it's a cult, because scams happen all the time, right? In my industry, I am a real estate broker. We have to be very careful when we have deals going on where the buyer will send in earnest money to lock up a property or then to pay for it eventually at closing. And it's scary, but there are lots of examples of where that money doesn't go where it's supposed to and someone takes off with it and steals it. It's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens. And I could see that happening. I know when we bought our house here, I just noticed how particular the realtors were and with the earnest money. And that made me feel good about them. I mean, they were, they were holding each other accountable, and no one thought bad of the other one. They were treating it like a business. And that's what you like. I have a question here, and this comes from a concerned parent, but the person says, if a parent, spouse, or close friend believes someone they love has joined a cult, what's the very first thing they should do?
Boy, that's a great question. Well, I guess my first thought would be it depends on the relationship with the person that you are concerned with. If it's somebody close enough to where you can have a really good, blunt, difficult conversation, have it right away. You have heard me say on your show before, I really love the phrase, hard choices, easy life, easy choices, hard life. And that refers to the difficult conversations that we all avoid, we don't want to have with a spouse, with a child, with a coworker, but we need to have it. And if we don't have that difficult conversation, the problem festers and it never goes away. So the idea is to have those, face them head on. So to answer that question, it depends on the relationship with that person. Because then, as I have also said, everybody around that person sees what's going on. We see it, but the person who's getting sucked into the cult doesn't. Because if there is undue mind control at work, then that person doesn't realize they're getting sucked into a cult. But your best chance of helping that person avoid what could be a catastrophe in their life, because being in a cult is catastrophic, your best chance for success is the sooner the better, because that mind control is like a snowball rolling downhill. For those of you in the South, snow is that white stuff that when it's rain is really cold and it falls from the sky.
We call it ice instead of snow.
So I'm in Montana. We get a lot of that. And, and it's sticky and it just rolls downhill and gets bigger and bigger. Uh-huh. That is a good analogy or illustration for the mind control. The sooner you intervene, the better.
Yeah. But because I overthink situations sometimes. How do I know I'm not just overthinking it?
Boy, I don't know. That's another good question. I think sometimes we all make life a little bit too complicated or more complex. Mm-hmm. Let me answer it this way. I think when we think about a cult, we think about the inner workings of it, and it would be very complicated, and the cult leader might be this brilliant but evil and narcissistic person with all these, kind of complex philosophies. And I can tell you from the inside of having gotten out of a cult, there was a lot that this cult leader shared with us, again, Uncle Robert, that I thought, wow, it's really complex and brilliant, and I don't understand it. And then I went to, and it was really kind of wrong and evil. Now, many years removed, I can tell you a lot of it was just utter nonsense. And yet in my mind, I made it more complex and, let's say, more intellectual than it really was. I mean, sometimes I think we give people in situations too much credit. It sometimes is easier than we think.
Oh, I think so, because generally speaking, my first response is the right one. If I feel something doesn't feel right about that person, generally speaking, it's the way it is.
And the caveat I would add to that, Donna, is that for me as a believer, I have the Holy Spirit living in me. So I'm constantly asking for wisdom. James chapter 1, ask for wisdom. Right. And if you believe, the Lord will give it to you. But when you ask, you must believe. So yes, in that regard, I completely agree with you. I'm also a little cautious at times because relying too much on, let's say, emotion can also get us in trouble. But, if we've asked for discernment and, we are seasoned citizens, you and I, and we've lived a long time and we've been through a lot, we do have wisdom stored up. So where that gut instinct is it's not just a whim, right? We have accumulated wisdom that gives us the ability to make that gut decision.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from a lady. It's almost a funny question, but I get what she means by this. She said that she and her husband have been going to a church, and she feels almost like she's going to a Amway meeting with the pastor of the church. She said it just seems to be a little bit too much selling from this guy, and she would like to hear more teaching. But her husband seems to really love, I'm kind of reading through this, scanning through it, but her husband really likes this guy. Does she need to talk with her husband about her feelings?
Well, yes, to me.
I've been to a church like that before where it just seemed like, what are we in level marketing? I mean, it just felt different,
Sure. Well, there's almost, I feel like, two questions embedded in that question. The first one would be, should she talk to her husband? And my answer would be unquestionably, uncategorically, absolutely, 100% yes. Husband and wife are one. At least they should be one. So there should be no conversations that are avoided. You should be able to talk about everything. And so, yes, those two should talk about that and really should be on the same page. When it comes to a church service, and I just went to a new one over this weekend, and it was a little different than what I'm used to. There was a lot of clapping and amens and all that, and I'm just not used to that in my church. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a little different for me. Here's what I always say is the key. And I don't care what it looks like, because every new situation can be a little uncomfortable for us. So if the church has a lot of this, like you said, Donna, it feels like it's selling, feels a little greasy, let's say, a little slimy, whatever it is. If you have the ability afterwards or during the service or whatever it is to ask good questions of the pastor, of other people, they're shouting amen next to you, whatever, they're doing things that you find a little off-putting, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. If you're able to ask questions and then they can honestly engage you and try and answer your questions versus shut you down and say, don't ask, just listen to Pastor so-and-so. If you're allowed to ask questions, to me, that is a very healthy situation. That's the key.
I agree. I think that's probably key.
Yep.
I never thought about it that way. Yeah, because somebody shuts you down when you are asking a simple question, that you have to wonder what they're hiding. Again, with a little age, I've learned that.
And cult leaders hate questions. They want blind loyalty. They want blind obedience. And so unfortunately, the church that I went to over the weekend, I really wanted to talk to this guy because he's a fascinating individual. I'll just go ahead and share it. His name is Chuck Baldwin. He actually ran for president back in 2008. He was the Libertarian candidate. I voted for him. He's a very controversial pastor. I find that his beliefs, I find them to be 100% biblical, but they're in America today in 2026, they could be very polarizing. So he does not fall in line with the Zionist agenda, which makes him a big target. So unfortunately, I had to leave. I couldn't stay afterwards and talk with the man. But it was fascinating to be there and listen to it. And I'm also a big fan of, listen, I think it's good to be in a church setting and have good, strong fellowship and show up on a consistent basis. But I'm also a fan of trying in other churches and hearing other preachers speak. I really like that. Because again, for those of you who maybe don't know me too well, I had just one dominant voice in my life, the cult leader, for about 20 years. And that can be a little dangerous when you just listen to one voice. I'm a fan of hearing multiple voices.
Yeah, I am too. Well, the Bible actually says, try the spirits and see if there are gods.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I realize that just sounded a little odd, as if I'm hearing multiple voices in my head. I didn't mean it that way. I meant going. I
knew what you meant.
You go to either churches or Bible studies or other hearing in person other people share the word.
Actually, it didn't sound that way to me, but anyway. So before we go into a commercial break, let's talk about your book. That's a must-have. And where can people find it?
Sure. So the title of my book is Stop the Tall Man, Save the Tiger. It's my memoir that details my journey, about 20 years long, in and out of a tiny but destructive religious cult. It was led by this guy called Uncle Robert. His name was Robert Booty. And it's been an Amazon bestseller. It's been very well received. I would love for everybody to get their hands on and read it, because it's not just my story, but it's a very important story that is very applicable to people's lives. So you can find it at my website, authorpeteryoung.com, or you can also just go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
There you go. Can you believe half the show is over? We have to go to a commercial break. Absolutely amazing. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody, hang in there. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. You know, finding the right home isn't just about bedrooms and square footage. It's about comfort, security, and the feeling you get the moment you walk through the door. That's why so many families across Greenwood and the Lakelands area trust Jenny Ferguson with Keller Williams. And I'll tell you from personal experience, Jenny was my realtor, and she truly cares about her clients. Jenny takes the time to listen to understand what matters most and to guide you every step of the way, whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, or ready to sell. Because this isn't just a transaction, it's your life. With local knowledge, personal care, and a commitment to getting it right, Jenny Ferguson makes the process simple and even enjoyable. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, now's the time to make your move. Call Jenny Ferguson with Keller Williams in Greenwood today and take the next step toward a place you'll truly love coming home to. Shine your style at Kiss My Glass right here in the Anderson Mall. There's a place where style meets sparkle. At Kiss My Glass, every piece is handcrafted, custom designed, and made to shine just like you. Owner Beth Gibson brings creativity to life with stunning custom tumblers, gifts, and one-of-a-kind pieces you won't find anywhere else. Look for the perfect gift or something uniquely you, from bold and glamorous to simple and elegant. There's something for every style, so stop by, get inspired, and leave with something unforgettable. Kiss My Glass inside the Anderson Mall, Anderson, South Carolina, where your sparkle begins. Be sure to check out Kiss My Glass on Facebook for updates and specials and gift ideas. Good afternoon, Sunshine. Medical Minute brought to you by Dr. Chuck with Lakeland's Chiropractic, where an ounce of prevention is worth what? A pound of cure. So what is the Beamer? Okay, now the Beamer uses very gentle pulse to electromagnetic signals. This will stimulate healthy muscles and it supports the temporary blood flow. Now let's talk Beamer and circulation support. Now the Beamer gently supports natural circulation in healthy muscles. Now that's what I call natural health. Thank you so much for watching your Medical Minute, brought to you by Dr. Chuck. You know who he's with. He's with Lakeland's Chiropractic, where an ounce of prevention is worth what? A pound of cure. I hope you have a super duper awesome rest of the afternoon. You take care.
Lowe's knows that the projects you build in spring are the ones you can't wait to share. It's why we make sure you have our best deals with My Lowe's Rewards, and that you get help from people who've
been there,
done that.
Try this.
This spring, we'll help you build something rewarding.
Hey, Stan.
What's up?
I made you something.
Oh, thank you. I got something for you.
You grew these?
Of course.
Lowe's knows how to help you spring.
Okay, we are back.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge television, radio, and podcast talk show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday. We appreciate your listening and watching on television, Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Continue sending email. I'm just telling you, this guy right here and I are digging the questions you are bringing on us right here. Peter Young is with us. And Peter, let's go ahead and dive in about the questions. And this is a good one right here. It's simple, but it's a good question. What is the biggest mistake families make in those first few weeks when they find out their child is in a cult?
Well, I would say the first mistake would be hesitation. And there could be a number of reasons for that. There could be on the parents' part, perhaps guilt or shame that they let this happen, that they weren't keeping a close enough eye, or the guilt and shame could be also kind of an embarrassment. my child's in a cult, and, now what are my neighbors going to say? And I can tell you from my perspective, there's a lot that I have learned and I have really matured and grown over the years because of my failures. I probably wouldn't have been this mature. Well, I know I wasn't this mature years ago. But I can tell you now, I have no shame in regards to what happened to me. I don't feel shame. I'm not embarrassed about what happened to me at all. Thank the Lord. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, because again, I wrote a whole book about how I had multiple failures in my life. But I say that because lots of people who come out of it feel shame. They're embarrassed about what happened. And I think parents of children or family members of someone getting sucked into a cult might feel shame. It's embarrassing and shameful that they've got a loved one, that this happened to them, and then they might feel there's a bit of a stain on them. Don't feel that way. This happens to so many people. It can happen for a million different reasons. So that guilt, that shame, that embarrassment, that hesitation, get rid of all of it and have that difficult conversation right away. And you don't have to have all the answers. Just ask really good questions would be the first thing to do.
And probably not getting really upset, because I've seen a lot of people do that, with their kids. They make just a wrong choice in anything and just go ballistic on them. I would think if you could just have a sit down civil conversation. I know if you yell and scream at me, I'm not going to listen.
Right.
So that's just my temperament. But if you just have a civil conversation with somebody, you might get a lot farther.
And if it truly is a cult, again, we've talked about this before, there is a difference between a cult and really dysfunctional, unhealthy culture. There's a lot of that, far less cults, a lot of unhealthy culture. But if it is truly a cult leaders also excel at this. They will tell their members, if you have family members who don't like what's going on, they don't want you, listening to me, they don't want you in our group, they would never call it a cult, they will then say certain things. They will then try to get you to come out. And the cult leader will prep that person for exactly what you as family members would say if you kind of come on too strong, if you kind of come on very negative towards the cult leader. And now that person who's getting sucked into cults will say to himself, oh, cult leader XYZ said this would happen. He said this would happen. And now you've just solidified in that person's mind how brilliant the cult leader is. See, he knew this would happen. So that's why I would say ask really good questions, and lots of them. Because if somebody really knew all the nonsense that was coming out of Uncle Robert's mouth, our cult leader, and just kept asking me really good questions, that would have been so much more effective. Because eventually I would have been like, you're right. That's really bizarre. I don't know what to say about that. That's your best bet.
Absolutely. Another question I think is a remarkable one is this one right here. Can there be a cult leader within a family unit?
Well, that's essentially what we had. So I would say the answer to that is probably yes. Even though we called this guy Uncle Robert, he wasn't related to any of us. So there was his family, his wife, his two adult children, but they weren't really part of it. And then, the family that I had married into, so my in-laws. So we were really barely 2, maybe 3 families total. And, again, he was definitely a cult leader. All that to say, though, if you're asking me, there's one family, so you got a husband and wife and then kids, and, let's say probably the father is what somebody's referring to. Is that person a cult leader? I don't know. My leaning would be towards, again, you have a very unhealthy, dysfunctional marriage and family relationship. Is that a cult? I don't know. Maybe we're splitting hairs here, but I would lean towards not. And I would say it's, again, another example of very unhealthy, dysfunctional culture.
Sounds like it. Another one right here. Let's see. Let me kind of go through these because you're getting a lot of questions that are almost the same. Okay, many people try to argue or criticize the group. Why can that sometimes, I think she wrote this in a really quick way. Okay, let me start over. The words are not really going together. Okay, many people try to argue with or criticize the group. Why can't that sometimes strengthen the members' commitment instead of weakening it? I think that's what she meant to say.
Right. Well, the question kind of hits a raw nerve, and it hits it on the bullseye, and that is that the cult leader really prepares for this and prepares his followers for this and tells them that they will be criticized. He will be the martyr. In our little cult, everybody was out to get Uncle Robert. And he said, oh, everybody wants to blame me. So if there's any kind of criticism, he would take on a very martyrdom role. And then the criticism would be just turned right around. See, I told you. And then he would throw out verses like, don't throw your pearls before the swine, which is part of the Sermon on the Mount. In other words, the rest of the world is swine because they don't understand Uncle Robert. And only you, my followers, understand me because I'm too brilliant. So no one else gets it, but you do because I've taught you. And also remember that no one ever knowingly joins a cult. No one ever joins a cult or a group. The group is given another name. Whatever it is, it's never a cult. So when there is criticism of that group from the outside, from the people doing the criticism, we say, well, that kind of looks like a cult. Remember, the people in the cult, it's never called a cult. And that's another thing that, like even in Jonestown or David Koresh, those people would have never considered their group a cult because of the undue manipulative mind control. It's always something different. And so that's why the attacks, if the cult leader has done what so many of them do, is prepared those people for these attacks, it will solidify his control. Again, that's why, as we've touched on numerous times in this episode, that questions, if they're asked well, seem much less like an attack, and thus they're much more effective.
Mm-hmm. And also, if you have a question for someone you feel like they're in a cult, just ask the question and don't say another word, maybe, because silence sometimes will get people to talk, and that could be more uncomfortable than arguing and fussing with somebody.
It's almost like the what's the figure of speech? You give a person enough rope and they'll hang themselves.
Yeah.
If you ask the question and get them talking, and if it truly is a cult, a lot of it is going to be nonsense, what they've been taught. If they can then hear themselves say these things out loud, coming from their mouth, you hope that then something will trigger their mind where they will finally admit, wow, that's really bizarre. I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, and it'll resonate with them that way as well.
Right.
Okay, I think we have time maybe for another question really quick. What kinds of conversations help preserve trust during this difficult time?
Boy, that is a fantastic question, because clearly the unspoken part of that question is trust gets broken. There's no question. Mm-hmm. Cult leaders will try and either blur the lines of the nuclear family or destroy it. So if one member of a family, let's say a son or a daughter, joins the cult leader is going to try and separate that person from his parents, siblings, cousins, aunts and uncles, etc. And that's done on purpose almost all the time. And if it's effective, then that, let's say, son or daughter loses complete trust in their family. And again, it's like, yes, ask good questions. Yes, try and be timely and intervene sooner rather than later. I can tell you in my situation, my family members who were not involved in my little cult at all, so my parents and my brothers, they didn't live anywhere near where I did. They were very patient and very loving. And patience is, boy, you have to have lots and lots of it, because it can take a very long time. And the loved one, by the way, if you reach out and try and help this person into a cult, the loved one is going to lash out at you. It's almost like Old Yeller, the movie with, on the Western frontier, where the dog gets rabies. Here's this loved one, and now it's been infected with rabies, and it lashes out at those trying to help it. And in a way, that's a pretty good analogy or illustration of someone in a cult. They've been infected. So it does take a lot of patience, but I think you could also hear as I'm answering this question that we had talked about it earlier. The sooner the better. It's just going to get harder if you wait to intervene.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'd love to have another segment if you can come back on for another 30 minutes in a couple of weeks.
You bet.
And again, thank you so much for being with me, Peter. It's been awesome. And thank you guys so much for watching, and to all of our sponsors, thank you so much for hanging around with us. We definitely appreciate that. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you a little bit later.